Starting our journey, we are going to be talking about a mysterious train station known as Kisaragi Station. First mentioned on 2chan in 2004, this story shocked many users who were mindlessly viewing the thread, posts about strange occurrences around you. An anonymous user, later known as Hasumi, shares her experience on the thread. January 8th, 2004. Hasumi wakes up in a train carriage. As she comes to, she notices all the other passengers are sleeping as well. She recalls she had gotten ready for work and was taking her regular commute, or so she thought. Confused, she tries to reach the conductor and driver, but were completely inaccessible despite many efforts. She writes that the train was traveling at speeds not normal among other trains she had ridden before. After an hour with no answers, and no stops being made by the train, they finally reached their destination, Kisaragi Station. Hasumi shared this on the thread, and users frantically scoured the internet to help her find the location of where she was. But there were no answers. They persisted, pleading her to get off the train. Adamant, she flees into the abandoned, ominous station. Scared and confused, she tried to find a taxi, to no success. After some time and consultation with users on the thread, she found a phone booth in which she calls her parents to have them come pick her up. As with the users, Hasumi's parents could not locate the train station. As a final resort, they demanded she call the police to report herself as lost. This also proved useless, as the police dismissed her as a prankster and did not conduct a search party to find her. Losing hope, things began to take an even stranger turn. Train station bells begin to ring, and an uncanny drum pattern climbs in volume. Her surroundings become completely unidentifiable. Too afraid to return to the station, Hasumi abruptly climbs onto some nearby tracks. As she does this, someone calls out to her. "Hey, don't walk on the track. That's dangerous." Finally receiving some sort of familiarity, she turns around, only to see a one-legged man, who immediately vanished when they locked eyes. Feeling as if she lost her mind, she runs down the track, continuously falling and injuring herself. Then she enters a dark tunnel. As she reaches the end of the tunnel, she meets a kind man who offers to assist her. Seemingly out of thin air, a train is summoned, her surroundings change, and the track leads to a distant mountain. Having no other options, she entrusts him, and they get on. The man is silent for most of the train ride, and they travel into the night. The only trace was a final mention on the 2chan thread. "My battery's almost run out. Things are getting strange, so I think I'm going to make a run for it." He's been talking to himself about bizarre things for a while now. To prepare for just the right time, I'm going to make this my last post for now. After this, Hasumi was never seen again. If you travel by train in your part of the world, make sure not to fall asleep, or you could end up in a place similar to Hasumi. This next one is for those who love spending their time in the sun out in the country. The Kune Kune first made an appearance in 2001 on our favorite site, 2chan. Often seen in rice fields, these beings are most often seen during lunchtime on hot summer days. Kune Kune, meaning wriggling body, is described as being a white, slendered humanoid creature with paper or fabric-like skin. As the story began gaining more traction, people began sharing their own eyewitness reports of the creature. It was understood by everyone that it was a fictional story, but as more and more people jumped on the story, the fictitious part faded from these experiences. One theory as to the Kune Kune originating was the confusion with scarecrows, or hallucinations due to the intense heat in Japan. It is believed that if you make too long of eye contact, touch the being, or get too close, it will take your life. Those who don't stare too long are said to be safe from any harm. As a fun fact, the Kune Kune is also a breed of pig from New Zealand, and they're just the cutest things ever. The intentions of this yokai are not described in the Gazu Hyaki Yagyo series. This tetralogy was first began in 1776 by Toriyama Seken. The Norerabo only appears near dilapidated temples in a torn kasa, or robes worn by Buddhists. The main theory for this yokai is that there are chief priests with grudges whose temples became dilapidated from lack of donations from villagers, which then they would appear at evenings at the temples and ring the bell alone to pay respects, since no one else will. Oftentimes, children would hear the sound of a bell coming from the mountains. These stories often got confused with the Yamabiko, which is the mountain god or yokai, which is believed to be the cause of strange or unfamiliar sounds in mountains and canyons. The Yamabiko resembles a dog and monkey and is said to be responsible for delayed echoes whenever people are in these mentioned locations. Sightings of the Yamabiko are very rare and are only known for their sounds. Japan has its fair share of female spirits, so this section will be dedicated to some of my favorites. Takaonna, meaning tall woman, is described as having a long lower body and is said to be lurking near Japanese brothels. They enjoy scaring men on the top stories of these buildings to ruin their good time with the wonderful staff. In the book Tohoku Kaidan no Tabi, Travels for Mysterious Tales of Tohoku. In the book Tohoku Kaidan no Tabi, by the novelist Norio Yamada, the Kaidan, or Mysterious Tale, depicts the Takaonna as a homely woman who could never be with a man when she was alive. Transformed into a yokai from her own desire, she wanders the earth, elongating her body to peek into the second floor of brothels to look at what she could never have. Kinda sad, to be honest. Futakuchi Onna, meaning two-mouthed woman, is a yokai with exactly what it sounds like. One appears where mouths are traditionally located, while on the other, not so traditional, is located on the back of her head, underneath her hair. The origin of this woman's second mouth is often linked to how little a woman eats. The second mouth often mumbles spiteful and threatening things to the woman and demands food. If it's not fed, it can screech obscenely and cause the woman tremendous pain. Eventually, the woman's hair begins to move like a pair of serpents, allowing the mouth to help itself to the woman's meals. While no food passes through her normal lips, the mouth in the back of her head consumes twice than the other one would. Kera Kera Onna. During the Edo period, the average lifespan of brothel workers was 23 years old. The profession came with low pay, constant abuse, and long hours. When these women passed away, their spirits could not pass easily into the afterlife, thus causing them to turn into the Kera Kera. They are gigantic, horrid yokai found in red light districts, who get their name from the cackling sound of their laughter. They appear as an enormous, middle-aged woman in colorful brothel kimonos, with thick makeup and slathered-on lipstick. They skulk around in alleyways and on empty roads, dancing, laughing, and mocking the profession that worked them to death. If a man is walking alone in one of these red light districts and is seen by a Kera Kera, they will let out a very loud cackle or scream that only they can hear, eventually causing the men to go insane. This is their revenge for all the suffering they had gone through during their time as prostitutes. Nureona, meaning wet woman. This is described as a 30-foot long, serpent-like creature with the body of a snake and head of a woman. She is often seen on beaches and the riverside, carrying a childlike bundle. She uses this to attract victims, oftentimes other women. She offers the bundle to be held, and if people do, she will remain calm. If the women try to discard it, the bundle starts to increase its weight, causing the women to collapse, and Nureona will suck the blood from the girl's body. In another story, she is simply a yokai who seeks solitude while she brushes her hair, and will become very annoyed if she is bothered. Hone Onna, meaning bone woman. She is actually one of the few yokai with no ill intent whatsoever. Her only purpose is to find her former lover, so they can continue their relationship together. They are often attractive women dressed in yukata or kimono and walking around carrying a red lantern. Due to their intent, many people don't fear them, and instead allow them to stay by their side, almost as if she believes these people are assisting her in finding her partner. They will often follow people closely and eventually pass on from person to person, hoping to one day be reunited with her lover once again. This last entry falls under more mythology than an urban legend, but it's a cool story nonetheless. Yamata no Orochi, or simply Orochi, is said to be an 8-headed and 8-tailed serpent or dragon. This creature is originally mentioned in 2 ancient texts, from 712 and 720 AD. The Shinto storm god named Susanoo was expelled from heaven after tricking his sister, the sun goddess Amaterasu. After the expelling, Susanoo encounters two earth deities on the Hi River, which is now known as, wait for it, Hi River, in the Izumo province. When he approaches these people, he quickly notices that they're crying hysterically. After questioning, he finds out they had been forced to sacrifice 7 of their children to Orochi, and would soon have to offer their 8th to satisfy the serpent. The 8th daughter, known as Kushi Inarahime, roughly translates to comb or wondrous rice field princess. Susanoo, for some reason, transforms her into a comb so he can hold onto her for safekeeping. Susanoo then offers an agreement with the couple. He promises to slay Orochi, and in return, he asks for their daughter's hand in marriage, in which they humbly accept. So he then conducts a plan on how to slay the 8-headed serpent. He instructed that 8 vats of sake be prepared and put on individual platforms positioned behind a fence with 8 gates. The monster took the bait and put one of its heads through each gate. With this distraction, Susanoo attacked and slew the beast with his sword Orochi no Aramasa, chopping off each head, and then proceeded to do the same to the tails. In the 4th tail, however, he discovered a great sword inside the body of the serpent, which he called Ame no Murakumo no Tsurugi. He presented the sword to the goddess Amaterasu as an apology for what he had done prior to being expelled. The legendary sword Kusanagi no Tsurugi, which came from the tail of Yamata no Orochi, along with the Yata no Kagami and Yasakani no Magatama, became the 3 sacred imperial regalia of Japan, and consist of the sword, the mirror, and the jewel. They represent the 3 primary virtues: valor, the sword; wisdom, the mirror; and benevolence, the jewel. According to legend, these treasures were brought to Earth by Ninigi no Mikoto, legendary ancestor of the Japanese imperial line, when his grandmother, the sun goddess Amaterasu, sent him to pacify Japan. These treasures were eventually said to be passed down to Emperor Jimmu, who was the first emperor of Japan and was also Ninigi's great-grandson. They were a symbol of the emperor's divinity as a descendant of Amaterasu, confirming his legitimacy as paramount ruler of Japan. When Amaterasu hid in a cave from her brother Susanoo, thus plunging the world in darkness, the goddess Ame no Uzume no Mikoto hung the mirror and jewels outside the cave and lured her out. At which point she saw her own reflection and was startled enough that the gods could extract her. Susanoo later presented the sword as a token of apology. He had obtained it from the body of the 8-headed serpent Yamata no Orochi. At the conclusion of the Genpei War in 1185, the 6-year-old emperor Antoku and the regalia were under the control of the Taira clan. They were present when the Taira were defeated by the rival Minamoto clan at the beginning of Dan no Ura, which was fought on boats in the shallow Kanmon Straits. The child emperor's grandmother threw herself, the boy, the sword, and the jewel into the sea to avoid capture. The mirror was recovered, but according to the main account of the battle, a Minamoto soldier who tried to force open the box containing it was struck blind. The jewel was recovered shortly afterwards by divers, but the sword was lost. There are a number of medieval texts relating to the loss of the sword, which variously contended that a replica was forged afterwards, or that the lost sword itself was a replica, or the sword was returned to land by supernatural forces. The importance of the imperial regalia of Japan is evident from the declarations made by Emperor Hirohito to Koichi Kido, on the 25th and 31st of July 1945, at the end of World War II, when he ordered the Lord Keeper of the Privy Seal of Japan to protect them at all costs. The actual historical status of these legendary treasures is unknown, as they are intentionally kept from public view to symbolize authority.